What's this week's Parsha? Oh, and what should we name it? Ta-da! Hello, welcome back to Insightful Torah. Parshas Shmini. Now, Parshas Shmini has many amazing things to it. Firstly, the name Shmini. Shmini is 8. We have 7 days in a week. 8 goes above the normal order schedule of things, which is already a Kabbalistic term or a concept. The idea of 8, higher than nature, expanding your boundaries, etc. Hanukkah has the idea, the Yom Tovim have 8 days, the concept of higher than Teva, higher than nature. That's one concept. But another major thing it talks about in this week's Parsha is the death of Aaron's sons. Death of Aaron's sons. So, just by reading the Torah, you see that it was because they walked into the temple, they brought they made this fire, and they brought this ketoris, this incense they brought. They did it while intoxicated. And that's when you read the Chumash, the Torah, the Bible, on a very simple level, it comes out, okay, they walked in there drunk. So, yeah, they were punished for that. But when you really look into it, and you really take off the shells, so to say, of the simple reading of the Torah, you start to find a whole new level, and you start to realize how much deeper the Torah really is. And we see this by a few different things. So first of all, they were not warned, Aaron and his sons were not warned about not walking into the temple intoxicated. It was after this incident that God told Aaron, don't walk in. And so you can ask the question, so then why were they punished? Because, according to the letter of law, if you didn't have the warning before, then you can't be punished for something you didn't know about. But it mentions, and Rashi mentions that he brings a mashal, a parable, that when you have a kid or a child or someone in the king's palace, and he just says, dot, dot, dot. Meaning the point is that Aaron and his sons were so close to God, they were like living with the king in his palace. So these some things you should just know, just common sense, but just shows you that when it comes to Aaron and his sons, we're talking about people that are on a very, very high, holy, spiritual level. We're not talking about people on a low stature who are just walking around the holy temple drunk. We're talking about people who are very close to God. So that's one thing to keep in mind. Another thing is the way that God punishes, or the way He counteracts certain things. He doesn't mida k'neged mida, measure for measure, according to the way it was done. That's the way he was punished, or that's if according to the way it was done a positive way. That's the way God rewards. So the same thing works here. That the issue about Aaron's sons, they brought a zara, they brought a unfamiliar, stranger fire to the temple, and they also brought this ketoris, which is this incense which smells very beautiful. And Rashi brings in his mashal, trying to allude to this idea of mida k'neged mida, measure for measure, and how God either rewards or punishes. He says it was like shnei chutin shel eish, like two threads of fire, which is corresponding to the fire that they brought, which was a stranger fire. It was zara. It wasn't common. It was unfamiliar. And then you have the ketoras. It says that, and it went up through their nostrils, to their nose, which basically is relating to the smell of the incense. So we see that the way that they're punished was corresponding to the way that they acted. So the question is, you could ask yourself, so seemingly they should have been punished for intoxication. So they should have something with intoxication. But that's when you look really into deeper levels of Torah, especially when you learn on a Kabbalistic level, and you learn that the whole idea of Aaron's sons was about they were trying to leave their bodies to become super spiritual and forget about this world, and what they got wrong was that God wants us to be here in this world and to refine it. So you might not see that from just a simple reading of the Chumash and say, oh, they were drunk, they walked in, boom, they were punished, of course, duh. But I mean, that way that they died, wasn't their clothes were still there, their bodies were not there. It was a spiritual death. It just shows you that there's so much depth to Torah, depth with a P, depth to Torah, that when you just read it simply, you might not get everything, and you might not see it. But the idea is, the more you learn, the deeper you learn, and the higher levels, you start to notice what's really going on. And this concept is all throughout the Torah and all throughout this Bible story, is that there's so much depth and there's so much explanation and so much deeper stuff that just by learning it once, you might not catch everything. And sometimes you have to learn it hundreds of times until you catch more things. And then you can learn even on a deeper level. There's so much levels of Torah, so much things to learn. And we can see it from the story because, simply just you hear the story, you know one thing. Then when you look into it, you see a whole other idea, a whole other picture of it. And that's the great thing about learning the Kabbalistic and the Chassidus on the Torah, because it really brings out this whole different concept. And I hope with this you'll have a better appreciation for the Torah and its stories and having a desire to learn the Torah on a deeper level. Okay, thank you so much for watching. Have a great day.